saw a very disabled woman walking down the street with 2 heavy bags, struggling to carry the bags, and she turned into a tiny tin shed, and I poked my head around and there were 6 other women in this tin shed. I went in there and they were there because they were all physically disabled in some way, and there's a cultural belief in Nepal that they were evil in a past life. And I couldn't help but think, you know, what are their futures going to be like if they believe this lie, and if their culture continues to treat them like this? What I was a student at the time, I had $200 left, and I was overwhelmed, that feeling that it's so much bigger than me. So I actually walked to the nearest internet cafe and called Mum back in Melbourne and just said, Mum, I've met these 7 disabled women, they're living in a tin shed, and I've got $200. Do you think I can make a difference? I remember thinking, I've seen a Rotary Club stall, and I sent them an email saying, I've just met these women in Nepal and we need $1,000. They said that they would fund $1,000, which was the start of 7 women and being able to really, really give this a great crack.
I'm Di Gillett, and this is the Power of Women podcast. We're a platform that showcases and celebrates the strength, resilience and achievements of women from all walks of life. Women who challenge convention, lead with the heart, and redefine just what is possible. My guest today is one of those women. Stephanie Woollard is a social entrepreneur, humanitarian and change maker, whose journey began in a tin shed in Kathmandu and has taken her all the way to an Order of Australian Medal and now to the west coast of Ireland. At just 22 years of age, Stephanie followed her instincts, and in fact a woman, into a shack that would change her life. 17 years later, she's empowered thousands of women through the social enterprise 7 Women. And now back in Australia, with a head cold in Melbourne winter, preparing to launch a new venture that blends her Irish roots with her passion for purposeful travel, the Celtic Way. This conversation explores not only the impact of her work, but the personal journey behind it and her drive and the sacrifices. So if you have ever wondered what it looks like to live with conviction and build a life around service, spirit and self-recovery, lean into this one. Stephanie Woollard OAM, welcome to the Power of Women podcast.
Thanks for having me, Di.
Thank you for joining us on this cold winter day. But you can see it's warm in the studio. We're both here in short sleeves.
So nice and cosy.
It's brilliant. Steph, can we go back to that moment in Kathmandu? Because you were just 22 on a trip to Nepal where you followed a woman into what turned out to be a tin shed. What did you find in that space and what shifted that particular day?
So I was in Nepal leading groups through the Duke of Edinburgh, and I stayed on while the group went back to Melbourne for a few days, and being my curious self and constantly wanting to understand the culture and the people. I loved the Nepali people. I was in the back streets of Kathmandu exploring on one of my final days, and I saw a very disabled woman walking down the street with 2 heavy bags, struggling to carry the bags, and she turned into a tiny tin shed, and I poked my head around and there were 6 other women in this tin shed, and it sparked my curiosity because they were pouring this hot wax that they were melting over an open flame in sort of a wok-like pan, and they were melting the wax and pouring it into these ancient-looking stainless steel candle makers. And so that was really interesting. So I was curious. I went in there and there was luckily a woman, Sangeeta, who had brought the other 6 women together, and she spoke broken English. So she was able to share what they were doing in that tin shed, and they were there because they were all physically disabled in some way, and she was able to share some of their life experiences. Because they're disabled, there's a cultural belief in Nepal that they were evil in a past life. So these women
were shunned.
they were really isolated, and one of the stories was that one of the women was hidden in the back room of her house in the village because her family didn't want anyone in the village to know and discriminate against them that they had a disabled child. So really sad and horrific. And as I was looking at the women's faces that were so beautiful and bright and smiling, I couldn't quite reconcile some of these things, and I couldn't help but think, what are their futures going to be like if they believe this lie, and if their culture continues to treat them like this?
Were they young?
They were. Some of them were around my age, and then a few of them were older, around sort of 40, 50.
So they'd been in that scenario for a long time.
Yeah, and finding it hard they wouldn't be able to rent because the landlords wouldn't want bad luck in their building, so they found themselves in this tin shed.
That would have been heartbreaking to see, but you didn't leave it there. You did something about that, and I think you did something meaningful, as I understand it, with as little as $200.
Yes, I was a student at the time, studying at La Trobe, so I only had about $200 left because I went for my life in the shops, when you're really passionate and you're having a great time travelling. So all of the little shops that, the owners used to invite me in for tea, and I used to just buy all these flamboyant, colourful things, and then you get home and you think, what was I thinking? I would never wear that. I had $200 left, and I was overwhelmed, that feeling that you feel when you're overseas and, some of these big global challenges and issues, when you just feel like, what can I do as one person to change this? It's so much bigger than me. So I actually walked to the nearest internet cafe that day after meeting the initial women and called Mum, that was back in Melbourne, and just said, Mum, I've met these 7 disabled women, they're living in a tin shed, and I've got $200. Do you think I can make a difference? Do you think one person can make a difference? And I remember Mum saying, go for it, and you'll be able to make a small difference, and we'll support you, as in her and Dad. I'm not sure if they realised how much support they would need to give me over the next couple of decades as I pursued this passion project. But
what did you do first? So $200, Steph on the ground in Nepal. What was the first thing you did after that phone call?
Yeah, so the next day I went back to the tin shed, and I remember as I was walking to the tin shed, I saw 2 of the women. They used to go out in twos and carry the bags of candles and try and sell them to the local shops. So I saw them sort of hobbling along, doing their best to sell, but they weren't able to sell because no one wanted to buy them from disabled women. So that was really heartbreaking. And I remember going back to the centre and chatting to Sangeeta, who had brought the women together, and just saying, maybe the thing is, I'd had experience. I'd been leading this tour, and then I'd seen, where it can fail with people wanting to go and make it a difference, but they sort of missed the mark. And so I'd come back to Kathmandu just before meeting these women, and I'd visited every organisation that would have me basically come and see what they did and how they did it, and realised that the ones that empower people or were building skills were having more of an impact and less likely to become corrupt, because in a country like Nepal, it's all it takes is a Westerner to come along and say, I want to give money. They go back to their country, they continue to give money, and the local has no accountability on the ground, so the money often gets corrupted. And because sometimes, it's the responsibility of the Westerner as well. The local may have never seen that amount of money, so it's sort of an irresponsible way of giving. So I had this curiosity, and I wanted to be smart in the way that I helped these women. So the first $200, as we were chatting, we decided to pay for training. There was a training opportunity through the United Nations Development Program that was starting, I think, in a week. But to be able to avail of that, we needed $1,000 to buy materials and a felt mat making table and all the materials to go along with it. So I remember looking back boldly, but at the time I was desperate, thinking, who can I ask for this $1,000? So I remember thinking, I've seen like a Rotary Club stall at a market once in Fed Square, and I remember taking a flyer, and I thought, I'll see if there's a club in Ivanhoe. So I looked them up, and I sent them an email saying, hi, I'm from Ivanhoe, and I know Rotary does good work. I've just met these women in Nepal, and we need $1,000 to avail of this training, and I need to know by, to the next day or two, because it's urgent cut-off time. So they actually wrote back and said, yeah, not knowing me from a bar of soap, they said that they would fund $1,000, which was the start of 7 Women, and being able to, really, really give this a great crack.
So this sense of social justice and this sense of humanitarianism, where did it come from? Was that part of your upbringing? Was it something that you found simply through the travels with Duke of Edinburgh? Where did it come from?
Well, I've just been to Ireland and we've done the whole family tree, and I've read, encouraged my grandma to write her story in a book. So she used to do a couple of pages every year for the last 10 years of her life. And I think it comes from that. It is an amazing journey to understand your heritage and where you come from and what the people in your ancestry were like. And my grandma was very courageous and very bold and used to stand up against the priests or the teachers if they were treating her kids incorrectly, and all these stories that just showed great courage and boldness and that sense of social justice and adventure. And I was thinking, wow, I feel really fortunate. I feel like I've got a little bit of that, from Grandma. And my mum, similar. My mum is a naturopath, so she's always been into natural medicine, and praise God, we've always been very healthy because she brought us up that way. And we, most of us have not been to the doctors, our constitutions are very healthy. So in order for her to take that career path, which she felt was right for her, she needed to stand up against, at times people that were pushing pharmaceuticals and these things that she didn't believe in. So I really admire my mum for that. So I think there's clues, if you look at your ancestors and where you've come from.
A bit of nurture and a bit of nature along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fabulous. So what were the feelings of reservation? Because starting on this, you got your first $1,000 by reaching out, and I think it's a great lesson. If you don't ask, you don't get, you don't know. Where from there?
And just relating to the last question as well, I think sort of in me when I saw these women, I just thought, who said that you can't do it? That really ignited something in me, because I just thought, wow, it's, and we have it just in a different way. They had physical disabilities, but we have limiting beliefs that, lies that we believe that really limit our ability to do something good in life. So just that, feeling of, no, I'm going to help these women, prove that they can. The first $1,000 that we got started with the training, and the women started to learn skills, and that was, I suppose, the first little step in empowering them to feel like they can create something, they can make something of worth.
It wasn't a handout.
It wasn't a handout, and I took the initial 12 or so products that they made, packed them in the suitcase and took off back to Melbourne and had the first fundraiser in my parents' lounge room. And I remember inviting, everyone I could think of basically, and about 30 people came and laid out the products nicely on the lounge room floor, and was so proud of them because I'd seen the women making them with their hands.
Yeah,
and
so it's deeply personal.
Yeah. And I just thought these products were magnificent, and everyone basically left at the end of the night saying, happy to donate but keep the products. And I remember thinking, how can you not appreciate, how did I not sell one of these products? They're so beautiful.
Yeah. So different connection.
Yeah.
So that kind of becomes the message for what you were putting together, because it was trade, not aid in terms of what you were building. So 7 Women have been going for how many years now?
So 7 Women ran for 17 years. Two years ago I handed over 7 Women to the local people because I felt it was time, and that it was built up to be 3 enterprises that were generating income, and it was a great time to hand over. And I had 2 trusted people that I could hand it over to that had hearts for the community. So 17 years with me in it, and part of that handover process was that they would rename the charity to really own it themselves.
And what is it today?
It's called Sungaba, which is a Nepali word that's very hard to pronounce.
So I've jumped forward because what started off as some trade, tell us what you built over that 17 years, because that became a multifaceted organisation.
Yeah, and
started
it really,
by a 22-year-old.
Yeah, and never dreamed for it to be that way, or I just wanted to help those initial 7 women. But, as a woman of faith, I felt God's hand was really on it, and I always felt very looked after through that process of, in a country like Nepal that is so corrupt, open doors and favour in places that were just unexplainable. So we were able to build a manufacturing business that then was wholesaling to 200 shops around Australia, and so we
few more customers than the first display in the lounge room.
Yes, I had to look myself in the mirror and think, okay, I need to design products that are more suitable to the market and do a bit of research around that. So we started, and it was great because I had a market stall at uni. I convinced a few of my mates at uni to come and do these market stalls every Wednesday, and that actually was at La Trobe University as a fair trade stall for over 10 years, which is quite remarkable because students, the turnover of students. So it stopped during COVID, but it was thriving up until then, and was really a presence in the Agora in the central area. And it was instrumental in putting fair trade on the map at La Trobe and things like that. So I was really proud of that and all the students that were involved. So we had that manufacturing business, and the market stall was a great way to trial the products and have a big bargain bin to put the ones that didn't sell and try new ones. So that became a great little manufacturing business, and we had 50 volunteers at any one time that were picking and packing and helping us send out the products. But over time it became a really big effort, and Mum was involved too, and I thought, I don't want to
see what that loan meant.
The whole family were just so supportive, and Dad getting up 5 a.m. in the morning on Sundays to do markets with me and things like that. So,
and was that your full-time gig? That's what you were doing?
It was all-consuming, and I had probably 5 or 6 random jobs on the side to help fund myself, babysitting, hospitality, promotions, all these jobs to fund me. But I was also living at home still at the age of 22, so I'm very aware that, my parents have really given me, my brother and sister, a great start at life to be able to think, in this generation, what do I want to do with my life? Whereas our parents' generation didn't always have that luxury, that to really work hard, and I knew I was always passionate about helping the poor. In high school, I wanted to almost had this mantra, I want to become successful by making other people successful. That was sort of always what I thought and felt, and I wanted to help the poor. So, not knowing where to start on that journey, I remember asking family, friends. There was a few months where I was just asking anyone I came across, do you know a good volunteer organisation that I can go and live or experience a developing country? Because if I'm going to help the poor, I need to understand more about how they live and how to be effective in that space.
Yeah. So how long did you actually live in Nepal during that 17 years?
Yeah. So, my mum counted my trips and came up with the number 36. She said I've been over there 36 times. But it was going and coming from Australia. So it wasn't sort of a good few years over there. It was more a few months I'd go and I'd come back.
And did that stigma of disability in the community lessen over time?
Yeah, so in the city, a bit hard to measure, but what we did see was in the villages it did, and because money talks over there, and when the women started to earn money and when they started to come together and unite, that was a really powerful thing, that unity, when they were able to sort of share their stories, because as humans, when we're isolated, we can really start believing these lies about ourselves, but when we come together and share our struggles, it really helps share the load and also expose things that aren't true that we might be believing about ourselves. So really saw in the villages that when women came together through the literacy classes, they were able to just make other things happen, like build roads and collect money and really improve the community. And it went to another level.
Wow. So as you look back now, having handed it over after 17 years, what's your reflection on the journey that you travelled with the organisation?
It was such a privilege and such an honour and such a life adventure, and I really am grateful for, being entrusted with some of the poorest and most vulnerable women, and so many people who came through our organisation and were empowered in different ways and upskilled in different ways, and now, living their dream or now earning more income. It was just such an adventure on so many levels, and gave me a great understanding of, because I didn't have any business background. Now I'm working in the business arena part-time, but previous to that, I'd never studied business at uni. I had no idea what I was doing.
So you learned it all on the run?
Yeah, which is the best way to learn. I love it. And it was just trial and error. And I remember at the very beginning thinking, really having that feeling of imposter syndrome. It was probably, 6 months to a year into the charity, and I had about 12, 15 students that were volunteering and loving it. But I remember feeling inside, I have no idea what I'm doing, and I've recruited these people and they're sort of following the vision. What if this whole thing ends up pear-shaped? I felt the weight of that.
How do you manage that feeling? Because that's pretty hefty.
Yeah, I think just kept moving through it and kept trying my best and kept trying to improve the charity. And at that point, the products weren't great. The women's skills weren't great. So we were getting sent a lot of faulty products, and it was hard to sell them. So it was, there were lots of doubts in my mind about, is this thing ever going to take off? Because
can we upskill them to the level that you need?
That we can sell the products and I can help them, because that's what they were struggling with. They're finding a market for their candles. So that was what I was trying to do with the products. But then, over time, I had incredible experience of how to build a business, how to see a gap in the market, we created a cooking school in Nepal, because at that stage the manufacturing business was growing and we were wholesaling, but it was a lot of work, and some products were just $5 profit, or and then we'd get emails that I couldn't stand, like, I bought a hand puppet 3 months ago and the ear's just fallen off and I want a refund. I was thinking, oh my goodness, this is so
you missed the point.
Yeah, so then that's right. So then we started a cooking school in Nepal and partnered with Intrepid and World Challenge and some of the big tour companies and some of the smaller ones as well. So
let's just stop there a moment.
Sure,
so you partnered with. So this is a young entrepreneur who said, I knew nothing about business. But so how did you go out and negotiate partnerships and start to piece this together? Because that's fascinating for somebody literally learning on the run.
Yeah. I think the passion and what has been put on your heart that excites you in life is really critical to act on. And I'm a big fan of, what I did with 7 women, just taking the first step, because there's an amazing way in life where when you take the first step, it's like, another expression is put a fleece out, which comes from the biblical origins of the story of putting a fleece out and seeing if, looking for a sign that's the way that you're meant to be going. So I do that flat out in life as a lifestyle. So if I get an excited idea or an inspired idea.
You've laid out a few fleeces.
Yeah, I literally just go, what's just one step I can take? Do I send someone a message saying, hey, what do you think about this? Or do I, what's the tiniest step I can take in that direction? So I think, to answer your question, there is a real flow to doing that. It takes courage to step out, but it can be a small step. It doesn't have to be the big one. If you get this vision that excites you, it's just the first small. And then there is, on the entrepreneurial roller coaster, you do have doubt and you do think, can I do this? There's ups and downs
Am
I capable of
entrepreneurship?
this? Do I have the skills?
Yeah.
And then there's, I think over time you build confidence because you see things happen. And by the time we had the cooking school, I understood that because I trialled it. The first step for that was I created a tour company, so I was taking groups over of university students and leadership organisations and Rotary groups.
A tour company, of course you did.
So they were my guinea pigs in the cooking class, and they gave feedback, and we really felt like we'd created a product that was valuable for tourists to have meaningful experiences.
How old are you at this stage, Steph?
So I think that was probably 5 or 6 years in.
Yeah, so you're still in your 20s.
27.
Yeah. Extraordinary. So cooking school, and there's another pillar that it became.
So then there was a guest house that we started. We saw an opportunity in the market. There's hardly any accommodation over in Nepal that has that social aspect to it, and my understanding of the tourism market was everyone loves to feel like they're making a difference when they travel, especially to a developing country. So I really thought through opportunities that would be useful to the locals that Westerners could engage in that were easy. And one was booking a cooking class where the locals it was empowering, they were sharing their skills.
They couldn't return it when the ears fell off.
That's right.
Perfect.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then the guest house where they could come and stay, and it was a brilliant training ground, front of house, back of house, all of these little opportunities for training in different areas for the women.
So how many more volunteers and supporters did you rope in through the cooking school and the hospitality side?
It was mainly the women working in Nepal and the team that we were building over there. But by that stage, we had a great supporter base of many people that had been to Nepal, shared it with their friends, lots of organisations, and part of that was Rotary. Lots of different organisations had heard of Seven Women and experienced it in some way, or had some touch point where they bought a fair trade product or had been with me to Nepal. And so it sort of grew like that. And we had funders for the first 5-6 years of Seven Women. I actually didn't want to take any money from anybody because I wanted it to grow slowly, and I wanted the women to really understand, if I do this, I will earn this, which was empowering, but also really avoiding that sort of
charitable handout.
Yes, because you can also create that mentality in doing it in an irresponsible way where you create that sense of entitlement among the people, and by that stage you're a goner. So we really, that was the foundation of Seven Women, that real sort of empowerment and the women owning it and knowing that they, had to do that to earn money because, I see people being taken for lots of rides also through the charity world.
And you wanted generationally to be passed on as a learning within the community.
Yeah, exactly.
Am I right, there's a documentary about this?
Yeah, so I think that was 6 or 7 years in, we had our first documentary made called Bringing the Light.
Bringing the Light.
I love that title because the women actually, had spoken that Seven Women was bringing the light into their villages through education and the programs. So that's available on YouTube. We've just uploaded it. But we had, I think we had about 6 or 7 big documentary screenings at Acme and Nova here in Melbourne, and then I think it was called the Athenaeum in Sydney. We had a few in Sydney as well, which was a great way to bring the supportive base together and showcase our work.
Yeah.
And we brought out Anita, who was the president of our organisation in Nepal. They call them presidents over there at the time. So she came and...
Big title.
Yeah, that's right. Very important.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And then the second documentary... that's on YouTube as well. That was made about the impactful tourism and sustainable tourism.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to add both of the links to those, if we can, into the show notes and join the dots on that.
A Spirited Journey is the name of it.
A Spirited Journey. It's number 2.
Yeah.
So Bring the Light and A Spirited Journey.
Yeah, Bringing the Light and A Spirited Journey.
And there's an Australia Day honour that came your way. When were you recognised for the work that you've done here at home?
I think that was 2016. So I went to do a master's in Sweden in 2013 to 15, and that was when...
A master's in
peace and conflict research. So that was actually a Rotary scholarship, and it's called a Peace Fellowship in Sweden. They've got partnerships with about 6 different unis around the world, and very fortunate to be granted one of those scholarships. And at that time with the charity, I felt that I needed to go and study, because I felt there was a missing link in the charity at that time, and that we'd reached great success, and that the women had, they're been lifted out of poverty financially and materially speaking, but it felt like there was still a missing link, because all the human stuff, there was still bickering, and there was still, a few bit of jealousy and a bit of pulling each other down, and I just thought this is not ideal.
So no different to any other part of society, really.
That's right.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
So, best intentions, but human nature is what human nature is.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
Well, coming up, let's talk further about what keeps you going. Also, what is the personal cost? And let's talk about what's next for this trailblazer. If you're loving the Power of Women podcast, be sure to jump on to our YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button to ensure you never miss an episode. Steph, your work has spanned continents, cultures and causes, and you are so not done yet. What's fueled this unwavering drive for so many years?
I like that. Continents, causes and
cultures.
I love that.
You can use that.
That's great. So I think my belief is that each person is created so magnificently and as, a masterpiece, as God's masterpiece, and we each have skills and gifts that we have to offer the world, and some of those, lay dormant depending on our life experience or, the beliefs we hold about ourselves. But that's my passion, is to really just see the gold in people and draw that out, because we all have value, huge value. So I think life, to a big extent, is people recognising their identity and the value that they carry, and really just backing themselves and going, I'm going to give this a real crack. And that leads to a lot of fulfilment. I've experienced in my path anyway. And the reality is, everybody's winging it. Nobody knows what they're doing in life. And the faster you
some
can...
admit it and some don't,
That's
Steph.
right. And the more you can admit it, I think the more freedom lies in that. Because if we are able to humble ourselves and admit that, actually we have no idea what we're doing. We're just doing our best, and there's so many good people out there wanting to do good. And if we just, focus on that and do our best, then, and just believe in ourselves. And I think a lot of us have, a second voice in our head that is really down on ourselves, and we're so sensitive because, if someone else criticises us, it's almost tips us over the edge, because we're already criticising ourselves so much.
Yeah, I get that.
So I... on my journey, I also had that. I had that because I'm a perfectionist and I'm an idealist. And
it's a tough place to live, Steph, isn't it? I relate to that.
It is. And then there was sort of a point in time in my journey where that just disappeared, and I felt present, and I felt like, at the risk of people taking the empty head. Do you know what I mean? My head felt empty of that voice, and it was just such a relief. And it was just...
How old were you?
Peace.
How long did it take to get to that point?
So that was probably after my master's, when I came home in 2016.
Yeah.
It was just, and I really challenged that voice, because I remember I used to be really hard on myself and work. I'm from a family of entrepreneurs, and so it's non-stop, door open, people coming in and out of the house. But, Daddy's a really hard worker, Mum's a really hard worker. My sister, my brother, they've sort of passed that on to us. And I remember coming back from Sweden, and I was a little bit broken because I'd just lost my grandma when I was overseas, and I was really close to her. So I was very much getting over the grief of that. And I just remember making the conscious decision, I'm not going to do that. It's like, whipping a horse that's exhausted. And I just remember thinking to myself, I'm not going to do that anymore, and I'm not going to get back to everybody on the emails, immediately. There's priorities.
Because that's my expectation. That may not be theirs.
Yeah, that's right. And it was just really liberating. And I remember I went through a period of time of waking up feeling guilty. It was so crazy. And I just, after a while of it, I just woke up one morning and I thought, what? This has got to stop. Like, why am I guilty? Why do I need to be feeling guilty? So I remember getting a piece of paper out and just one morning go, I'm going to write all the reasons why I should be feeling guilty. And it was almost challenging that force that was coming against me, and just saying...
And what were the two key things that came out of that you put down?
I couldn't think of any reasons why I should be feeling guilty because I was doing my best.
So there wasn't a lot on that paper?
There was nothing. And
there was nothing on that paper?
No, and I think if we do challenge these thoughts as people that are coming against us, a lot of it we will find...
It's our self-talk.
And I was praying against that at that point because I'd been on a whole faith journey through my grandma, the loss of my grandma. She was a strong woman of faith and Catholic woman, and I remember when she passed away just feeling a disconnection that was unbearable. I'd felt up to that point.
Something was missing.
Something was missing, and it was just, I just kept sort of saying to a friend of mine that I was with at the time, I feel disconnected. So I actually called a friend because, you know, when you're feeling like that, you don't always want to share it immediately because I was thinking I don't want to be a burden to anybody. I've lost Granny, but no one can fix that. And I was just sort of in that ditch. And then I remember thinking, no, who do I call? So I called a friend, Ricky, who lives in Heidelberg Heights here, and Ricky had told me 4 years before that he had an experience in his... I saw Ricky struggling to fit into Australian society. He was a refugee from West Papua New Guinea.
Yeah.
And it was quite sad, you know, seeing him start to drink, start to smoke. It wasn't him. It didn't match with him. And then he shared this experience. He had a vision of Jesus in his bedroom, and at the time I was busy, you know, doing the charity, so I was like, wow, that sounds amazing, but I was busy. And it was when I was in my slump that I just thought, because I'd seen him transform, I'd seen his life change completely after that experience, so I thought maybe he can help. I was desperate, so I called Ricky and I said, Ricky, how do I pray? How do I connect with God? And really just started pressing into prayer after that, and I just felt those prayers were answered. God brought the right people into my life at that point and really brought the joy back, and that led to, you know, I had this incredible, overwhelming vision of Jesus. Just, it was sort of a fleeting vision, but it was just, he was basically, you know, standing in front of me and looking deep into my soul, and he knew every single thing about me since I was born. He knew everything about my life, everything I'd been through, which was a lot of ups and downs, you know, and it was just the overwhelming sense of love, and it gave me great peace. So after that was sort of the catalyst for me to that encounter, to be really curious. And I didn't have anyone around me apart from Granny that was really, you know, religious or Christian, or I didn't really...
So this wasn't the whole family followed the faith, this was you and your grandmother?
Yeah, and I was a real truth seeker, and I'd taken it to extreme, you know, the extreme in many respects. I
think you might do a few things to the extreme.
And very curious. So when I was in Nepal, I was curious about Buddhism and then Hinduism. And so I read books on both and all the temple visits and, you know,
constantly seeking.
Yeah. And then, you know, in university I had a few beautiful girls that were Muslim, and they gave me their books to learn. So I read that, and I never quite could connect with any of them, but it was like when I did, I went around to Ricky's house when I got back from Sweden, and I said, do you have a Bible? So I started reading the New Testament, and just, you know, the Matthew, Mark, Luke and John, their experience of Jesus when they walked alongside him. And it was like the words were alive to me. And it says the words are living and active, and it was like, and this is, you know, it's a very personal walk, you know,
absolutely.
But the words to me were decoding my life. It was like these spiritual principles were being decoded by reading the New Testament, and the words were like, they were giving me revelation. And so I, being myself, and I love, you know, whenever I come across a good thing, I immediately want to share it. So I started plastering these quotes from the Bible all over my social media. And I remember,
did that go?
It didn't go very well. I remember a few of my friends in Ireland, you know, had messaged me saying, Steph, ease up on the Bible bashing. You're really putting people off.
Found that confronting.
Well, what I realised through that was people have baggage with church if they've grown up if they've had different experiences, or, I mean, realistically, the church has failed badly in so many ways. But I think people confuse religion with faith, and I think a lot of people live by faith. Like a lot, even in Ireland,
you can have faith without a religion.
That's right. And like, I personally wouldn't really call myself religious, and you know, I'm thinking even Jesus was against the religious people. He stood up against them and he said, you're hypocrites. He actually called them hypocrites, and, you know.
So how long did you put the social media posts out there for?
So, I mean, that was good. I always take feedback and sort of weigh it and think, okay, what can I take out of this? And I thought, okay, fair point, you know, like, but that's not.
Did you leave them up or did you take them down?
No, I left them up.
Good on you.
I left them up because, I mean, the reality is people are seeking. I'm not on my own in this journey of seeking and searching for the truth. And I just remember, you know, for me, and I can only speak personally, but when I did start reading the New Testament, I had this overwhelming sense in my spirit of the search is over.
You'd found your place.
And the peace and the joy and, you know, what I was saying about the empty head, not the best way to describe it, but it was like clear head and there's no condemnation.
Clear's better than empty. Empty's got a negative connotation.
I think so. Yeah. I don't want people to think I'm simple. So it was just, and like, you know, because throughout my life the spiritual realm is real, is what I believe, right? So I, being curious, I did explore so many different, and now my understanding is it's real, and it can be quite dangerous to dabble in the wrong places, because you might be, you know, dealing with, you know, like the material world is real, the spiritual world is real. So, so that was a really interesting journey for me. But what I can say is the guilt left me. That feeling of guilt, the feeling of self-condemnation for not doing enough every day, because when you run your own thing, you can never be doing enough. Yeah. The joy and the peace that, you know, I'd tried different things in the past, but it was, you know, it might make you feel better for a little while, but then not, you know, not for good. But since I have really started pressing in, it's that joy and that peace has stuck with me.
Without a drink or anything,
that's right.
Any illicit substances
joy
involved.
Of life.
So
yeah,
well
right,
done you.
Joy.
That's brilliant. So you and I have spoken very briefly off camera. The personal cost of what you've given up for a life of purpose and giving to others. What's been the personal sacrifice in doing that?
I think, like, I never ever saw it as a sacrifice. I saw it as a massive opportunity and just growth and learning in life. And I felt I was really walking out my calling, and so I felt really fulfilled in that. And the personal sacrifice, I would still say I don't feel like there has been one. Yeah. I mean, it just...
My words, not yours.
That's right. I think this last, 12 months, I've really felt like I'd love to, I'm 40 now, and I've been adventuring and really fulfilled in what I've been doing, and very focused. And, during my 20s and 30s, I really was just focused on helping these women and building this charity. And so the last 12 months, I've sort of felt like I'd really love to have a family and find a partner and things like that. So it's, your priorities change in life depending on the different seasons that we go through. So that's probably one of the things that I have not been as focused on over the last 2 decades when I've been building all of this. So now's the time to
And have you met people, have there been romantic encounters along the way, travelling around the world?
I've had, not even around the world, but just I've had a few boyfriends along the way that have been real blessings, but just didn't feel right to pursue.
And how do boys along the way relate to this incredibly driven, entrepreneurial, socially minded individual? Did they get you?
I've been really blessed, and I've met people that have been I felt like a team with for and then there's been a relationship during COVID, which was such a blessing, because I don't know what I would have done if I didn't have just that solid partner to hang out with, and that was, just sharing personally here, that was, COVID was probably the most relaxed time ever in my life, where I was just chilling out, watching The Chosen and movies. And
I can imagine it's the only time in your adult life that you've actually stopped.
Yeah, and it was great. I absolutely loved it, and I was sort of fascinated at the fact that I could, because I am so driven and I'm an action woman. I was like, wow, I've actually managed to
But
adapt.
it wasn't your choice to stop. It was imposed upon you. There's probably a difference.
Yeah, that's right. And then sort of I think my partner at the time was quite shocked when it started opening up again and I started getting back to my normal pace. He didn't quite know.
He didn't relate to that person as much?
No. And he was...
hence my original question.
Yeah, but he was really beautiful and a tradie, very, very down to earth, very relaxed. So it was just, I was so grateful to, have...
Right person for the right time.
That's right.
Yeah. Brilliant. So you've returned to Australia, albeit I know you've just got back from Ireland, but you've launched something entirely new. And am I correct in saying the Celtic Way, not the Celtic Way, the Celtic Way? The Celtic Way. Tell us about what that is.
When I started my travel company taking tours to Nepal, I absolutely loved it. There's something really transformative about getting out of your comfort zone and, all the senses are engaged in a new place and new people. And I missed that when I handed over the charity because I handed over the 3 enterprises and the travel company to the locals.
Wow.
And so I've always had a huge heart for Ireland. I absolutely love that country, the connection with my grandma being from a tiny village called Glenmask in the west of Ireland. And so for similar reasons that I started the Nepal tour company, I started the Celtic Way because I think, Ireland, like Nepal, is one of those countries that everybody absolutely loves and they have such a warm, beautiful heart experience there because of the people. And so I wanted to share that experience with others. And so about 2 years ago, I went to Ireland and sort of mapped out a really fantastic trip of all my favourite places and, there's high teas in castles and boat trips and just with the heritage bent on it. And I felt that it was, talking about inspired ideas, an inspired idea came to me of golf tours and heritage tours. So I
And are you a golfer?
No, I'm not.
You're not?
But I know golfers that are really good at what they do.
And they love Ireland.
Yeah, and they love Ireland. So we've just launched that company, the Celtic Way, and we've got 18 people coming in August with us on this incredible trip that we've mapped out. And it's Ireland, Scotland, Wales, so it's people with Celtic heritage, and there's a lot of opportunities to trace, their family tree on the tour. And our guide is phenomenal at genealogy and heritage. It's his real passion point, so he'll be amazing.
And are you a solopreneur on this? This is you, or are you doing this in partnership with someone else?
Yeah, so I created the company and I've partnered with locals on the ground that friends and people that can facilitate the on the ground bit. But I've launched the company on my own.
And how did you get 18 for the first tour?
I think it was just friends and the network, and I think I'll come back from this trip and tweak a few things and just the vision is to be the leading sort of heritage travel company for Ireland, Scotland, Wales in Australia, and it's a real opportunity in the market, I think so.
So are we now in a phase of moving into a commercial slant, or is there still a charitable slant to this as well?
Yeah, so the Celtic Way is purely commercial, and there's a new brand that I'll probably launch next year, which I'm really excited about, which is called Do Something Good, and I've registered at Do Something Good Institute, Do Something Good Foundation, and that's all about reaching people of any age that were basically like me before I started the charity, and just a good person wanting to do good in the world but not quite knowing where to start.
It's literally taking all of your learnings and creating it for somebody else.
Yeah.
Love that. Love it. So my final question for you today, Steph, and it's hard to have a final question for you because you've got so much going on. But for a woman listening right now, maybe she's sitting there with a big idea or a moment of doubt about what to do, what would you say to her?
I would say, where I've found the most confidence is, I call it God confidence, and that's what I've found that in my faith, because, you know, otherwise you're like a tree that gets blown around in the wind if you don't have roots and you don't know who you really are. And part of that's been, you know, amazing to learn my heritage, but it's really in my faith that I feel that just unwavering confidence. And it's not even confidence in me, it's confidence in, and I think a lot of people would feel this as well, something's out there looking after us, and there's something greater than us. And so I've found huge courage and boldness in that, not in myself, but in my faith. And so I would encourage anyone to sort of explore that, and it is a personal journey. So what's the first step in that direction? But also, what is the big vision, and what's the first step that you can take to just test the water, dip your toe in, and gain that next bit of confidence that you might need for the next step.
And I do know that whilst I don't necessarily have the same level of faith, I do actually know I have a guardian angel, and I do know who it is. So, and that was presented to me through the most extraordinary circumstances many years ago, with a complete stranger reaching out to share that with me. So
that's amazing. I think I've got an incredible friend who sees in the spirit, and we all have a guardian angel. We all have an angel that's with us, which I just find so beautiful and special.
But not many people get to know who it is and sense it. Yeah, wonderful. Well, Steph, thank you so much for joining us today, helping a little bit to get the Celtic Way off the ground. How can somebody find you and book a spot on your next tour?
Oh, amazing. So the website is thecelticway.com.au, and it's all over social media, and would love to have anyone who's wanting to trace their family roots.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thank you for joining us. And watch what Steph's doing, because if you are somebody who does have a passion for doing something good too, I think the experience that she can bring to that discussion after 17 years of starting a social enterprise that became a great success, that has empowered so many women and given it back to the community, there's a lot to learn. So watch the space, because Steph Woollard has so much more to give. Thank you. Until next time. If you're loving the Power of Women podcast, hit that subscribe button and be sure that you never miss an episode. Until next time.